Tails and Snails Aquatics, and today we're going to be doing a little aquascape project. So if you're new to the hobby or not sure how long you want to be in the hobby, smaller tanks generally a good space to start. So you can start out with something small as a 3 to 5 gallon. This video today we're going to be doing a 20 gallon, and so I've got a 20 gallon tank here. This tank we picked this up in Petco or PetSmart, one of the two. They have their once a quarter, it seems, they do $1 per gallon sale. So if you time things out correctly, you can pick up a 20 gallon tank for 20 bucks or a 10 gallon tank for 10 bucks, 5 gallon tank, well, you get the picture. So today we're going to be doing 20 gallon tank, and so this actually is kind of mid-size. We've got a lot of options here with the 20 gallon tank. It's one of my favorites as far as doing escape, because it's not too big, but it's not too small, so you can choose your selection of plants can be a little wider. You can obviously take on plants that grow a little bit bigger without having to trim and trim and trim and trim. So that's our tank. Next thing I'd like to talk to you guys about is our lighting. So in our fish room here, we're using, these are what I like to call sunrise to sunset lighting. So these are lights that mimic the behavior of the sun. So in the morning, the lights will come on and they'll be kind of an orangish, almost like sunrise. And as the day goes on, the light increases in intensity, and then at night it decreases to where you have night lighting, and then it actually turns itself off at night. So you have a very consistent light cycle that every day you have very consistent lighting. And lighting for a planted aquarium is one of the most important investments you're going to make. Too much lighting, you're going to have problems. Inconsistent lighting, let's say you leave the light on for 4 hours a day and then the next day 12 hours a day, or too much lighting for too long, it's going to throw the plants. It would be like if we had 20 hours of daylight and then 2 hours of daylight, 20 hours of daylight. So these are very good investment. So you can find 24-inch follow the sun lighting on most of the online retailers. There's several different manufacturers that make lightings like this. Ours actually have a remote, so essentially you could customize the lighting. So there's blues, greens, reds. You can mimic cloudy, sunshine, storms. But for our planted tanks here, we put the lighting on the 24-hour mode, and so you can, there's a dial section of the remote that starts at 12 a.m. and then goes the full 24-hour cycle. So if it were 6 a.m., essentially you want to sync it up and hit the 6 a.m. button at 6 a.m. and then it will take care of the rest, and then you never really have to touch this setting again. So the next thing we're going to talk about is our substrate, and in this video I've got a couple bags of this product called Eco-Complete. This is by Caribsea. Not plugging the product, but I have had fantastic luck with this substrate in my planted aquariums. And so this is like a volcanic material, and it's not like soil. It looks like soil. It's a volcanic material, almost like a crushed volcanic rock. It's very porous, holds minerals and fish poop, and turns that into plant food. So fantastic product. We had great luck with this, and this is what we're going to be using today. It also says here on the bag, no rinsing, packed in conditioned water, solution for immediate results. And so I found we've probably gone through 2 dozen bags of this. It does have a little bit of film and cloud in the water, but as we build the tank, we're going to show you how to do that without kicking up a lot of the dust and dirt. So that's what we're going to be using for our substrate. And you can use sand, you can use gravel. Plants will grow irregardless, but for the best results and faster growth, it's going to be better if you use a planted substrate such as this, or planted soil. There's many different products on the market, so this again, the Eco Complete. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is our hardscape, which is just another word for the hard things such as we've got some driftwood here. I also have a volcanic rock. And the volcanic rock you could either decorate. In this case, we're actually going to bury this, and we're gonna leverage this as part of our substrate. We're gonna help use this to get some elevation when we pour the substrate. Now the great thing about volcanic rock, using this in your planted aquariums, there's tiny little holes that are in here, and the beneficial bacteria that are in your aquarium are going to colonize all these little holes, and this is actually going to help as part of your, essentially this rock's going to be part of your aquarium filter, and this will supplement the other filtration methods that we're going to employ in the aquarium. Plants, so I'm not going to go through the details and names of each of the plants here. I will probably put the names of them in the comments section. Once you get into the hobby, this is a microsorium, for example, one of the easier names to pronounce. But some of these plants, and don't be discouraged, some of them have some very difficult to pronounce names, and that's okay. Some crypts here. And we've got some Anubias. So we're just going to do some easy scaping. These are all very hardy, low light, low CO2 requirement plants. And what I mean by that is these plants will not suffer if you don't have fantastic lighting or CO2. They're generally very hardy. They'll grow irregardless, and the plant growth rate, essentially the light, the CO2, the substrate, the temperature, all these things that are part of photosynthesis, they all contribute to the plant's overall health, the plant's growth, and growth rates. And so these plants are kind of picked out as great beginner plants. They're very hardy. They'll live in any number of conditions. Alright, so on to the fun part. So we're going to go ahead and start building out our aquascape. So this table's a little flimsy, so actually I'm going to move this tank up onto our shelf here very carefully. And rule of thumb, aquariums, glass aquariums, they hold their weights in the corners. So you never want to pick up the tank by the top of the rim on the glass. You're just trying to hold it from the bottom. And when you put it on a surface, you want to make sure that surface can hold the weight. And you want to make sure that the corners, first the aquarium's level, and that the corners are where the aquarium holds the weight. So our little shelf here, going to hold a 20-gallon aquarium, no problem. Carefully slide that in there. Okay. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lava rock and I'm going to gently put it down into the far left corner here. And I'm going to leverage that lava rock to help build up some of my elevation on the tank. So again, this product already has some water in here, so I'm going to try to do this without making a big mess. Half the fun is getting dirty. First bag in. Okay, first bag down. Second bag. This down. I'm probably not going to use all of the second bag, but let's get this going. Okay, so that's a good start. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to level this out, we're going to grate this. So what I want to do is I want to create a grate which is higher in the back and lower in the front. And you could do this with your hands. They've got aquarium tools to level this. Today I'm going to be using a putty knife, so it's got a wider breadth. And so essentially I'm going to just even this out. And in this case, I'm going to I want the far corner to be higher. Remember, that's where I put that lava rock. And I'm going to be lower in the front. So when I look at it head on, I'm going to see a nice elevation. And now I've got an idea of, okay, how much do I have in there? I'm going to go ahead and put a little more of my substrate in. Got a nice build up in the corner. I want to, on this side, I want to do a little bit of a plateau, but then kind of level it at the top. Again, you can do this however you like. Now, your layouts can be anything you want. So it's yours to do, yours to design. Now you can actually, some folks like to do drawings, sketches, plan it ahead of time, or you can kind of do this on the fly. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work our hardscape into this. So I don't really have a lot of hardscape in this one. Essentially I've just got our driftwood here, and driftwood I'm going to kind of work on a semi-diagonal. Now you could have dragonstone, you could have any number of things that you could use as your hardscape. This is a very simple layout, and now we're going to plant our plants. Now these are wrapped in a kind of a foam paper. Get the roots out. Now these plants are pretty big, so I'm just kind of using my hands. You could use tweezers, any number of tools to get them in. The bigger plants, I'm not admittedly that skilled with the tweezers working from this angle, at least in this, the way this tank is. And let's go ahead and separate the plants from the sponge here so we can get their roots going. And you may find, as the plants grow, your original scape, your plans might change and evolve. Now, the more you do this, you'll start to get a feel for what's going to work in a particular scape, and you can kind of do this ahead of time, planning your above, your foreground, your background. But it's not necessary for starting. So another one. Just going in the corner. Now the great thing about these plants is your fish, your invertebrates, your snails, it's going to be a complete symbiotic relationship between all of these aquatic plants, your animals, your fish, and it's simply gorgeous. When you're done, and as the aquarium grows out, everything, some of these really get stuck in there tough. I'm trying to get this out without hurting the plant. Okay. Last piece here. Nubius. Okay. All right. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on filling the aquarium. So to do this, I've got, let me straighten some of these plants out a little bit, and as we go, you fill, you step back, you get a feel for, does that look the way I want it to look? Or not, and obviously you can change that along the way. So what I have here is a simple glass bowl. So I'm going to leverage this in my fill process, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that down into the water here, and then what I'm actually going to do is I've got my fill hose, and so this is actually a nice little idea I found out there on the net. So essentially you get PVC pipe, and it kind of makes a up and over, and I've got a little valve here. And what we're going to do is when we fill, we're actually going to let the water gently trickle into the bowl, and then the bowl will fill over and will gradually fill up the aquarium. So we're going to go take a break now. We're going to do the fill, and we're going to come back after the fill, and we're going to talk about the filter, the heating, and cycling your tank and getting it ready for your fish. So be right back. Welcome back. You can see we're now done with our fill. So no cloudy water, everything looks fantastic. I went ahead and took the liberty of plugging in our heater, so you didn't see that on the film. This is a 100-watt heater, works fantastic for a 20-gallon tank. I will say with the heaters, do not plug them in until they are until the water is completely filled, and there is a fill line on the heaters. They get extremely hot, and if they are not submersed, they can crack and break. Unfortunately, I've learned that the hard way when I was younger. So the heater's on. Second thing I would recommend to anybody is a digital temperature thermometer. So I didn't put one in on this yet, but generally there's thermostats on heaters, but I can tell you they are generally wrong 100% of the time. So using a thermometer to fine tune and get your heat, depending on the species of fish. In this case, I'm going to be gearing towards guppies, mystery snails, and shrimp. The guppies and the mystery snails enjoy pretty wide range of water, but I've had a lot of success with breeding with the higher temps, like in the low 80s. So you can see now my driftwood, my plants, water spots here and there, but otherwise everything looks great. And next thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about filters. So you see I have this is what's called a sponge filter, and this creates a very gentle current, and essentially you have a air line which connects here, pushes air down the tube, and bubbles come up the larger tube, and it will pull air and water out this outlet in the center. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a gentle suction. If I pull these off, these are actually perforated, and the water will come in there via the sponge. And in the sponge, so the sponges are porous, the water will flow through the sponge, and then in your sponge, that's where your beneficial bacteria will breed and colonize. So all the fish poop, fish food, just general waste that's floating around in the aquarium, that will actually create yourself, that will actually do all your beneficial bacteria will come into there and they will thrive, and essentially that bacteria will convert the ammonia that is excreted from your fish and your snails and your other critters as part of the nitrogen cycle, and that essentially is part of your filtration, is the bacterial breakdown of the ammonia into nitrites and then to the less harmful nitrates. So when you first start out in an aquarium, there is no bacteria. So what I like to do with mine is I have several of these other sponge filters. Now you can, if you have a second aquarium, it's tough if you're first starting out. You just kind of have to go through that. You can buy bacteria now. They even sell bacteria. But the nitrogen cycle can start with anything. So it can start with fish food. These bacteria are not something that you need to get special. It just naturally happens in your tank. And the thing that I love about these sponge filters is they're gentle. They won't suck in any baby fish. They won't suck in any baby snails. No baby shrimp. And for the baby fish, they actually provide a source of food for the shrimp, and the babies will actually eat on there. Now, the other thing is, I rarely see these in any big box store, and there's no money to be made in these. You know, you buy them and they last forever, versus a cartridge. You buy a cartridge and the price of a filter, and then you have the typical hang-on backs, which have a cartridge that once a month you have to change out, and they're not terribly expensive, but over the course of a couple years, these things will pay for themselves several times over, and I have had extremely good luck. They're very efficient and very natural, very gentle. When it comes time to maintain these, essentially when you're doing a water change, this is important because they're living colonies of bacteria in the sponges. You're going to drain some of your water into a bucket, and I generally take these in a bucket and I just squeeze them out and unclog them. And very important to do it in fish water. If you run it under a faucet, under your sink, you're going to kill the bacteria, and you're essentially going to have to start all over with your nitrogen cycle as it pertains to your filter. Now, bacteria is going to also spread all over your tank. That lava rock that we buried, that's also going to produce beneficial bacteria. So let's go ahead and get our sponge filter in. So I'm just going to squeeze these guys to get some water sucked in. Get the bubbles out. These have simple suction cups that are just going to suction on there. And I'm just going to connect my air hose. Once I connect my air hose,
he's not in our party.
We're going to go ahead and get that on there. Whoop.
He's in a
It's
different
kinda
channel. He's in a
stiff.
different channel. He's not in the same channel.
Put that on here. And I'm going to fight with this air hose. I just know it. Alright, there we go. Now we have flowing water and wet ends. Alright, so another trick, if you already have sponge filters, you can basically, I like to take those and squeeze them into the tank. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now with one of my sponge filters that is already good. So this is out of one of our other aquariums. And I'm just going to this bacteria and let it go everywhere in the tank. Now the other trick that I use is I'm actually going to switch the sponge on one of these. If you have several of these around, you might be able to do it on several. And now I have a cycled sponge ready to go, and I'm going to put this other one back on one of my other tanks. Now it is going to set them back and diminish your capacity for a little while, but they will come up to speed since it's already an established tank. That'll come up to speed, and there you have it. So I may have clouded and mucked up the water for a little bit, but I also just spread beneficial bacteria all over my tank, and we're going to get a jump start on our nitrogen cycle. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ray from Tails and Snails Aquatics, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.